All right, we're back with our second video of the day, our second 2019 college football team season preview and prediction video. I did Kentucky earlier today. That wrapped up the SEC East, so I've done all the SEC East teams now. Going to jump into the Big Ten today, right now for the second video, and give you my 2019 college football team season preview and prediction for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live again for you today on LouTube. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Some of them are watchable. All of them are entertaining. We have a great time on this channel in the comments section and in the live shows. Subscribe if you're not. Stick around. You'll enjoy it. Season right around the corner here. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited about the start of the season. 6 days away from the week 0. Huge matchup, Florida and Miami. If you're not a college football, if you're not excited 6 days away about the start of college football season, I don't know what's wrong with you. Give this video a thumbs up. All right, let's talk about Iowa here. Big Ten West, right? What's considered to be the weaker of the two divisions in the Big Ten. Big Ten West. What did they do last year? Pretty typical Iowa year, to be honest. 8-4, 5-4 in the conference, so middle of the road. 9-4 overall after they won their bowl game. What was the bowl game? Did I even write it down? I must have forgot. I apologize. I usually write down the bowl game and I just forgot. But in any case, they finished 9-4. Who'd they lose to? Lost to Wisconsin by 9 points. That was a little head scratching because Wisconsin had a down year last year. If you just think back to last year and okay, who was better, Iowa or Wisconsin? Iowa probably pops in your mind. But you lost to Wisconsin by 9. You lost to Penn State by 6. You lost to Purdue by 2. And you lost to Northwestern by 4. So all pretty close losses there. 3 of your losses were by 1 score. The Wisconsin game, you lost by 9. Nothing really to be embarrassed or ashamed about there, in my opinion. 8-4 during the regular season, 9-4 to bowl win. How'd I do trying to predict Iowa's record last year? I'll put my prediction from last year up on the screen now. We can look at it. We can either laugh about how wrong I was or I can brag about how right I was. Again, you went 8-4 in 2018. I predicted 8-4. I got 3 of the 4 losses right. I thought you were going to lose to Minnesota. You didn't. You beat them. And you ended up losing to Northwestern instead. So I was pretty close. And of course, now I see it. You beat Mississippi State in the bowl game is who you beat by 8 points. So pretty good win there. You also beat Minnesota last year, who was another pretty good team. You beat Nebraska. They were a 4-win team. So you look at your best wins last year: Nebraska, a 4-win team; Minnesota, a 7-win team; Mississippi State, an 8-win team. So you pretty much lost to all the teams that were better than you, and you pretty much beat all the teams that were equal or worse than you. Like I mentioned, a pretty typical Iowa year. You won 8 games in 16, 8 games in 17, 9 games in 18. That's sort of who Iowa is, with the occasional 11-win season here and there. I think you actually won 12 games back in maybe 2015 or something like that. But generally speaking, you can bank on Iowa to win somewhere between 7, 8, and 9 games almost every single year. If you did that, you'd be right way more than you were wrong, right? 9th in recruiting in the Big Ten, so about middle of the road in terms of recruiting in the Big Ten. And again, that's reflected in the record that we see. So, but please keep telling me that recruiting doesn't matter and stars don't matter. Anyway, Kirk Ferentz. How long has Kirk Ferentz been at Iowa? Yes, 21 years. Unbelievable. You know what's even more unbelievable? They've only had 2 coaches. This is crazy. They've only had 2 coaches since 1979. Hayden Fry was hired in 1979. He coached all the way up until Kirk Ferentz took over 21 years ago. So I think he coached for 20 years. Kirk Ferentz now at 21 years. So 41 years, 2 coaches. You do not see that very often in college football these days. It used to be not all that uncommon, right? Bobby Bowden at Florida State forever. Joe Paterno at Penn State forever. We just had Bill Snyder retire from Kansas State there forever. You just don't see that a lot anymore these days. Mark Richt was at Miami for 15 years, and people couldn't believe it. He was one of the longest tenured coaches in America at 15 years. So you just don't see coaches stick around the same school this long anymore. Hats off to Kirk Ferentz for, in my opinion, getting the absolute most out of what he can from the recruits he's able to get in the middle of nowhere, USA, Iowa. All right, let's look at Iowa's offense. Quarterback Nate Stanley. In the last 2 years, he's thrown 52 touchdown passes. So he's no slouch. That's an average of 26 a year. I think he had 27 last year and 25 the year before. But in any case, 52 touchdowns total over the last 2 years. Now, the bad news in terms of this year, over half of those 27 touchdown passes from last year went to those 2 tight ends that Iowa had that both got drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. So you've got to make up a whole lot of production in terms of touchdown passes because of what you lost at the tight end position. Again, over half of those 27 touchdown passes went to those two tight ends. Stanley's got the arm to do it. He's just got to find the receivers to catch the ball. He's over 5,000 career passing yards now. That's great. But again, 9-9 in conference play. So one of the best quarterbacks you've had 2 NFL tight ends to throw to, has had a pretty good offensive line really forever since he's been there. 9-9 in conference play. That's a direct result of the recruiting. Like I mentioned, you're recruiting the middle of the road in the Big Ten, and the records reflect that, right? You have about a 500 record in the Big Ten overall under Kirk Ferentz. You were 5-4 last year. So it's pretty easy to add this stuff up. Let's look at your wide receivers. Athlon Sports says you have the 10th best wide receiver group in the Big Ten. So again, near the bottom there. Wide receivers. What's this guy's name? Marset and Smith. They're both juniors, right? 23 receptions last year for Marset, and he's probably your best returning receiver. Smith had 361 yards. Maybe he's your best, but again, neither one of those people lit it up last year. They're both back. Again, this points back to the tight end. Tight ends had huge years for Iowa last year, and the NFL took notice, drafted them both in the first round. You got a lot of production to replace at the wide receiver / tight end position. You've got a redshirt freshman that looked really good this spring that I think most people expect to get a lot of playing time this year, Tracy Jr. We'll see how he works out. Your top 3 running backs from last year return. That's good news. That could offset some of what you lost in terms of touchdown passes to those tight ends, maybe. But of those 3 running backs, none of them averaged more than 5 yards per carry, which is kind of a benchmark in college football. In the NFL, 4.5 yards per carry is considered elite almost, but in college football, your elite running backs are getting 7-8 yards per carry, at least 6 or more. You don't have a single running back with over 5 yards per carry. So I don't think any of those guys are elite players. Maybe with a running back by committee type approach, you're able to get some production out of them, but we'll see. Offensive line, second best offensive line in the Big Ten, according to, I think it was Athlon. Michigan, of course, number 1 there. But Iowa, second best offensive line. Both your tackles return. That's great news. And Iowa seems to always have a pretty good offensive line. I don't see any reason why that won't be the case in 2019. Defensive line, great defensive ends. Really good defensive ends. What's this guy's name? Epinesa? Am I saying that wrong? I hope so. I hope I'm saying it wrong. I'm pretty sure that I am. He might be the best pass rusher in the entire Big Ten. And that's saying a lot. When you look at some of the players that Ohio State and Michigan especially have, he may honestly be the best pass rusher in the Big Ten. This guy's the real deal. You got Golston on the other side. So in terms of your defensive front, you're really good on the edge. We'll see how it works out for you in the middle. I think you're going to need a little bit of help there. Linebacker, not a very good situation either. 9th in the Big Ten in terms of your linebacking group. Lots of experience at the linebacker position, but not a single standout player, really. Now, maybe one will emerge this year, and obviously if you're an Iowa fan, that's what you have to hope. But there's nothing really that jumps out at you right now about Iowa's linebacker situation. Defensive backs, better news here. 3 of your 4 DBs return, including both your cornerbacks. That's great news. You do lose that safety, Hooker, I think his name was. He was the Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year. Again, that's kind of amazing when you look at like Ohio State, for example, seems to put defensive backs into the NFL almost every single year. He was awarded Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year. He is gone, so you got to find somebody to replace him at safety. But again, both corners returned. That's good news. Your defense was 2nd or 3rd last year in almost every single major defensive category within the Big Ten. So not national ranking, but within the Big Ten, your defense was second or third in almost every major category. That's great. If you can find a way to keep your defense that good this year, you're probably looking at another good season, 8+ wins, right? We'll see. Offense, 10th in rushing, and when we talk about the running back situation earlier, that becomes not that big of a surprise. You couldn't, no running backs that average 5 yards per carry, no standout running back, no true number one. What do you get when you add those things up? Well, you get an offense that ranks about 10th in rushing. So we'll see if they can improve that any heading into 2019. All right, let's put the schedule up on the screen. We'll go through it game by game, try to figure out what an overall regular season record for Iowa might look like this year, and try to determine where the wins and losses will come. All right, you start out at home against Miami of Ohio. You'll get a win there. I'm a believer. If nothing else, I'll take Kirk Ferentz to win this game. If I didn't know anything about the roster, Kirk Ferentz will get his team prepared regardless of who's on that team. He'll get them to the point where they can beat a Miami of Ohio. I have you at 1-0. Rutgers, one of the worst teams in the Power 5. I have you winning there. Nothing against Rutgers. They're just miles away from being anything meaningful or relevant. You're 2-0. Week 3 on the road, in-state rival. This is an underrated rivalry game, and I think maybe it's because of where it falls on the schedule every year, kind of early or whatever. Iowa at Iowa State. Well, we already know what's going to happen here because of where the game is played. Yep, that's right. You can't win on the road at Iowa State. It's impossible. The Big 12 expert will tell you without hesitation. So, unfortunately, you have to lose. You're 2-1. That takes you to your first bye week. Come out of that, another non-con game, MTSU. I'll give you a win, Middle Tennessee State. They're not a terrible team, and this is a type of game that if you sleep on them, they can sneak up on you, but you have a bye week before that. Even though I have you dropping that game to Iowa State, bye week keeps you from having a hangover. You get a win over MTSU without a problem. Yep, on the road at Michigan, lost. Michigan's going to be one of the best teams in America this year. I don't care what anybody says. I've been saying that for 3 years straight. Eventually, I'm going to be right. Hopefully, it'll be this year. I've got you losing on the road in the Big House. Come back home, play Penn State, win. This will be a big win for you here. I think you beat Penn State at home. Penn State's in a transitional year, in my opinion. Not a rebuilding year. They're past that, but a transitional year. Replacing McSorley, one of the best quarterbacks they've ever had, replacing their starting running back for the third time in 3 years, whatever. They lost Saquon. Now they lose Miles Sanders. And another guy coming in. Lots of question marks on both sides of the ball at Penn State. They've got some talent, but a lot of it's unproven. They got Micah Parsons at outside linebacker. He might be the best linebacker in the Big Ten this year, but other than that, they got a lot of questions, really. I think you find a way to get this win at home over Penn State, so you're still sitting there with just 2 losses. Back-to-back home games, you host Purdue the following week. Purdue's going to beat somebody they're not supposed to. Ask Ohio State, they'll tell you without a problem. Rondale Moore, he's still scoring touchdowns against Ohio State. That's just unbelievable. One of the most exciting players in all of college football. You return both your corners. Good luck covering Rondale Moore. It won't happen. He'll get a bunch of yards. He'll score some touchdowns. I don't think it'll be enough, though. Purdue's kind of a one-man band. I don't think Purdue's going to be a very good team. They'll win 5 or 6 games this year. Again, they'll beat somebody you don't expect them to, but it won't be you. I think you get the win at home over Purdue. You come back home then. What is this here? Where are we at? Oh, at Northwestern. Loss. I think Northwestern will beat you. It's really hard to figure out what's going to happen in the Big Ten West this year. You got people that are going to go with Wisconsin because they're the usual suspect. You got people that are going with Nebraska because of the Scott Frost year 2 thing and sort of Cinderella story that would be because of how bad Nebraska's been lately. Adrian Martinez on some people's Heisman list. So you got some people going with Nebraska. You have some people going with Iowa because of the West being just sorted down. They think, okay, maybe Iowa can take a step forward and win it. You've got people going with Northwestern. I mean, you got people going, there's 4 or 5 picks out of the West. Who knows who's going to win it? I think you lose this game on the road at Northwestern, though. That takes you into your second bye week. We come out of that, you got to go on the road at Wisconsin. I'm giving you a win here, too. You win on the road at Wisconsin. Listen, beating Penn State at home, at Wisconsin on the road in the same year, not easy to do. I think you do it. I think you're a good enough team to get that done. I think Iowa has the same problem that a lot of teams in America have. A lot of these, 8-9 win teams have this problem. They're good enough on their best day to beat almost anybody, with a few exceptions, maybe. The problem is depth and playing at that high of a level consistently. That's what really separates teams like Alabama and Clemson from even Georgia lately. Georgia's been a really good team lately, but they haven't been able to play at that elite level every single week. And you see them go out and lose a game every year that you're like, how'd that happen? Not just Georgia, it happens to every team. So Iowa can beat some really good teams, but I don't think they can play at a high enough level consistently week in and week out to put together like an 11 or 12 win season. And so that's why I have them losing, like to an Iowa State or whatever, but being able to beat a Penn State and a Wisconsin. But I do give you the win on the road there at Wisconsin. Come back home, play Minnesota, another good team. Minnesota's a good team. Again, Minnesota, Iowa, Northwestern, maybe even Wisconsin this year. They're all the same team, aren't they? Northwestern, they're all the same team with different helmets on, but I'm giving you a win against PJ Fleck in Minnesota. At home against Illinois. Listen, ask anybody on the street to name every team in the Big Ten. They won't name Illinois. No one knows Illinois exists, and even less people care. Last game of the year on the road at Nebraska, lost. This game may be the game that decides who wins the division in the Big Ten West if things work out a certain way. I'm already on record going with Nebraska to win the Big Ten West, although I'll be the first to admit that the Big Ten West is a complete crapshoot this year. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see like a three-way tie type of thing in the Big Ten West where they have to use tiebreakers to determine who comes out of there for the conference championship game. I've decided to go with Nebraska, and for that reason, I'm giving you a loss on the road there to end your season. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 losses. So 8-4 with a possibility for another 9-win season if you can win your bowl game. But I've got you to 8-4 for the regular season. Again, I'm pretty confident on the 8-4 record. Obviously, arguments can be made one way or the other on several of the games I have you either winning or losing. But I think you're going to land at 8-4. I really appreciate you guys watching this video, and have a great morning.